Hey, welcome back to another episode of the AI Relay. I'm Andrew Signore.
And I'm Jonathan Spanos. And Andy, why does talking to AI sometimes feel so weird?
I don't know, man. It feels weird because it is weird, you know. like it. Sometimes when you're chatting with something that like is responding, like, and it's so human-like, right? It feels somewhat weird knowing that there's a rational side of your brain that knows that this is just a computer that's responding back to me, and yet it seems like it understands, or that it's thinking, or kind of pondering, what you've said, and responding back with something, with that makes perfect sense, that can feel weird. I mean, I've got a few theories why, like, humans, as someone who uses AI all the time, why it does feel weird. But I think that I would imagine that feeling, that weirdness of using something that feels so human, is something that's common. But why we feel that way, that might be different based on, like, how we use AI. Is it feel weird? I mean, I would imagine it feels weird for you too, right?
Yeah, I think I can't imagine anyone answering other than, yeah, it feels weird. Or there are moments where it has felt weird. And it is about like how you interact with it, I guess. And without being an evolutionary biologist, I think all humans can intuitively say that there's something about language that elicits different reactions from us, like so deeply and automatically that we don't even realize or can't even access the mechanisms of how that happens to us. And it's insanely weird that like you can have this synthetic mimic, but so perfectly mimicked to not just the sequence of words grammatically, but like there's an ethereal part to language where we're reading between the lines, I guess is the phrase that we use when we say, when to describe what I'm saying. Like it's the way you strung the words together means more than just the words. And LLMs can replicate that so perfectly that it actually causes like physical and mental reactions in our bodies. And there's so many moments where I've like, it said something profound, funny, or totally stupid that was so human that it made me think or laugh or get upset. And I'm like, wait, this is a computer, right? Like,
Right.
what am I, a kid throwing the Nintendo controller? Like, it's just a machine.
It is, and that's where too it can get. It's just, for me, it's odd to like, because in a human conversation between two human beings, especially in something where like you're maybe talking about something sensitive, there's like a certain like vulnerability and risk in like a human sharing something with another human,
Hmm.
and that, there's skin, like I've got some skin in this game, whereas like on the other side of that conversation, uh, they don't have that same risk, and there's no skin in that game. And sometimes, like, maybe that imbalance will allow me to be like maybe more honest with an AI, but at the same time, like, it doesn't make it feel any less weird, that like I'm like talking to something that doesn't really have any skin in this game at all. There's like, they don't feel vulnerable, like the
Hmm.
AI doesn't feel vulnerable, the AI doesn't feel anything, right? It's just predicting, like, words in a series that it's hoping is like what I'm expecting to see.
And like, it is simply predicting. We believe this, at least. um, but
I mean, that's an
it's like,
oversimplification for sure.
yeah, but it is like the predictions are coming out. We could just leave it at that. But it's wrapped in tone, and it's wrapped in things that we recognize to be elements of what we would call personality. And that's that mushy part that makes it start being so weird and feel like you're doing something social. Uh, and to your, like what you were saying, like when you talk to another person, because we're social beings, I guess, again, I'm no evolutionary biologist or whatever, but there is a kind of unspoken social contract whenever you interact with someone. Like you subconsciously expect things to be pretty civil and communicative or
Well,
whatever.
there's almost like an uncanny valley aspect when you're, dealing with an AI because it's a robot.
But
And
it
even if
doesn't
it's
feel
not,
like it's a robot, and that's the
well, in the
weird part.
uncanny valley, like the robots look just like humans, but there's
Yes,
something
right,
off. There's something
right.
like there's a weirdness to it, and I think that's a similar weirdness that we feel when we're like when we're talking to like this like synthetic consciousness, that like something is off. It's slightly off. And I think, one of those things is like you're dealing with something that never is really giving you any cues outside of, you know,
Other than the language, its only way to cue you is language for
right.
now,
There's no
is through the
social cues
language.
really, like through like a wink or a nod or a, I mean,
Those
maybe
kinds
there
of
is
social
even
cues,
though,
because
like maybe that's part of it.
language. Well, I also think that is because
Yeah.
its use of emojis, for example, is a perfect example of that. It uses emojis very well to emphasize or make me laugh all the time. It's amazing. It's hilarious. Um, but language is a form of social cues too. The way the tone moves, the way you emphasize certain things. People have specific, let's say, senses of humor that are expressed through the way they use their language. Like you can't really set. There's maybe multiple layers to having a sense of humor, but one of them is the way you manipulate language to make something funny.
And
Um,
maybe part of it is just like the newness of it all, right? Uh, and
I think
like,
that's like the meta loop. It is so new, but it feels so ancient, and
well,
that's the
right, because
weird thing.
especially because it's like you're using language, which
That's
is,
the whole point, right? It's the
um,
language part of it that's so human that it actually makes me keep reacting like a human. And
right.
it's so easy to forget that it is on a different kind of relationship than it would be when I'm talking to a human being. It
Like,
doesn't have the same buy-in, like you say, right? It's not gonna really, it doesn't have something to care about, but it says the word so perfectly the way that someone who does have buy-in would say it.
and maybe the weirdness will wear off after a while, and as like using AI becomes something so commonplace that it's no different from, using any appliance, or it's just something that is normal. Um, and I'll give you an example of another application of AI where that's not generative AI, but it is real world AI, is like using like full self driving in a Tesla.
Hmm.
And like, the first time you use full self driving in a Tesla, like if you're like me, you kind of white knuckle it, hands on the wheel, and you're
I'm
just like,
sure.
like highly attentive, ready to like disengage the auto, the like the auto driving at any moment. And then you make it through a drive, and it feels strange that like you're almost surprised that you've made it to your
That you're
destination,
alive.
that you made it without a disengagement. You're like, holy smokes,
Right.
I just, uh, that, and then the more you do that, your hands tend to drop to the point where now you're just sitting at the seat, at ease. And in the beginning, it's like
That
you almost had to train yourself. um it was weird, and the stress of driving was almost more stressful because you're letting this other thing take over, but you want to take over at
yeah,
any second. So
right,
you're like, it's like you're driving, but you're not driving, but you're ready to drive at any second. You know the exact move you're going to make at any second. Mentally,
right.
you're still driving. It's not more relaxing, but eventually you get to the point where like you trust this weird thing that used to be so weird, and now it's how I get myself from A to B. It's like now I get into the car, and rather than
Yeah,
put
okay,
the
but
car in reverse, I put in my destination and hit start self driving, and the car starts to reverse.
you're describing like getting used to something that used to feel weird, and now you're used to it, so it doesn't feel weird anymore.
But I
But
think
are
maybe
you
that will
saying
happen.
like like in the form of language though? Like I'm going to start to differentiate my physical reactions to language based on whether I'm using a chatbot or if I'm talking to a human, because the language is going to stay the same, or if anything, the models are going to get even better at mimicking human actual like innuendo and broader meaning within a string of words.
I guess that sort of depends on like what do you need the AI to do,
Well,
right?
that's an open
Like
question. That's an
what
open
is
question in general
right?
right now.
It's like we're talking about AI changing the world. Is AI going to like change the world faster because it's responding even more human-like than before? Like to me, that isn't like wow, that's like an amazing byproduct of AI that like it's human-like. That isn't what is going to change the world, right? That's just one of its many features. Um, what will change the world is its ability to do like real work that doesn't currently involve like moving an atom from one place to another, right?
That's true, but the interface is, even at that dry description of it, the interface is still grammatically correct, full sentences that are well articulated. And so, like, we're going, whatever the future is, and
Right. It's just
however it's going
like
to take over the world, it's going to
just
take it over
because
through language.
just because language is the operating system of a large language model doesn't mean that like you will be operating everything through conversation. It just means
Hmm.
that language is the operating system of AI. Like the fact that you can interact with AI through conversation is almost a byproduct of the fact that language is the operating system of AI and AI understands language. So you can chat with it. But the fact that you can chat with it and the chatbot is reacting in a human-like way with its responses, that's not like what's going to make everything super cheap in in 10 years.
No, that's not what's going to drop productivity or drive
It's
productivity
the
up
fact
and
that
drop,
right, the AI is going to be
output to
able to
zero
do
cost.
real work that a human was once able to do.
Yes, that's the practical use case of like the output of the AI,
Right.
but getting it to do whatever it is that you're going to do, whether you're going to have the AI write software that is going to be the better software so that the AI doesn't have to do the job, or whether you're going to have the AI doing certain things through skills and sort of repeated habitual things, it's still going to be language. And like sometimes I get so deep into something, some project, right? I could be going for hours straight. The context window has been burnt to toast, and like I'm fully interacting with it in my own voice. I'm writing funny things. I use metaphors all the time, and like to the point where it knows my metaphor. Like we have a code language of metaphors for different parts of the workflow, and that's the part where if I were to pick my head up out of the water for a moment, it's like sometimes it does hit me like this is so weird. Like I'm in the middle of doing a very serious task. I'm trying to build something or whatever, but like I'm also like I would be on a job site. I'm cracking jokes and it's responding and we're still moving the ball forward here. And I know I'm actually just basically wasting tokens and I'm basically just creating noise in the token window, the context window, but like it's better for me. I'm working better because I'm working the way that I like to work. So it's almost like I'll pay that cost so that I don't just feel like I'm talking to a robot and I need to be robotic about talking to the robot. Because you could do that and you can get very cut and dry input and very cut and dry output and just do what it does. And there's certainly moments I can, obviously, there are plenty of use cases where that would be the better way to interact with AI because you have some extremely clearly defined goal and you're like literally at work in the office or whatever. But on the other end, I feel like I'm getting, in a way, better output aligned with me, is what I mean by better output, right? Like, what are
Right.
my priorities and my vision? I feel like I drive toward those goals better because I can do this weird thing, like of talking to it as if it knows me and it's going to answer like a human being because it
Right.
does answer like a human being.
It does. 100% it does. Again, like, and that's and so, I guess but the more that you do that, probably the less weird it will be after a while, I would
It's
imagine.
comfortable. I'm
To
comfortable
me,
doing it. It's still a
like
little weird though, isn't it?
that is like I like and any way which you can use AI to like kind of improve your workflows or like increase your productivity, that's awesome. Um,
Right.
I I don't like I use AI a lot and I don't use it in that sort of like capacity where I'm like where I treat it more like a tool than I do of like of
Of a
than
colleague.
like a right like an abstracted
I treat it completely like a colleague. Like it's
Right.
like my best coworker. Oh, to the point
And
where
you
it's
totally
the
know.
smartest one in the room. Like I might be the boss in a way, but
Right.
like I defer to it. I tell it all them. Like you know that. Like you go find out about that. It
Yeah.
asks me questions about stuff. You want to review this like code? I'm like, I'll even say like, I don't know anything about that. Like just because it's
Right.
funny, and it laughs back, and it's like, oh yeah, why did I ask you? And it goes and checks.
Right.
And those are those weird moments where I'm like, I'm sitting by myself with a computer laughing out loud as if someone just cracked a joke because someone did crack a joke. It was a funny joke, whatever it was.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I think too. I guess that uh, like I, I just that's when it comes to like I guess maybe because when I'm doing work and I'm using AI to do like work, uh, I know what it's not ambiguous as to what needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Something very specific needs to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And I typically know that before I'm interacting with the AI. So like I'm not, like I'm really using AI like professionally to accelerate like the outcome of a project. Uh,
Yeah,
like the
right.
project's goals have been defined, and that wasn't defined through AI. That was defined by, let's say, senior management,
Mm-hmm.
and like and we're to deliver that, and we're using AI to deliver those goals like faster and under budget.
Very
And
much a tool. It's just strictly like a very interestingly, completely weird new tool,
right, and
but
we
a
interact
tool.
with that tool using language, like
Right.
because that is the but even like with that, I treat it more like language just allows us to like read a skills file without having to know anything about code, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the language of a skills file is it's natural language. It's readable. Like you can just read the
Right.
skill. It
Right.
says tool, it says description. It
Right. It is what it reads. It's
right.
exactly what it reads the words, tokenizes it, processes it, and whatever. Let me ask you this that
But
just popped in my
I
mind though,
still
right?
frame everything in like a systems mindset of like after I futz with my agent to get it to do something right the first time, I say, okay, that now build it like based on all the work that we just did and all the mistakes that we just made. We don't want to make those mistakes again. Let's write a skill for that thing. So the next time we do it, you'll know all the right
Yes,
paths,
sure, sure.
right?
This
And then
these
like,
are good techniques. We should definitely do an episode on skills. We've been talking a few times about it.
right. But I
Let's not
think that,
listen. I don't want to
anyway,
drift into
sure.
techniques as so much as the weirdness of the thing because like I can fold in the question I was just about to ask you though. Like the part you just described, it was basically like a design session, which is a brainstormy back and
Totally.
forth, which is a very human thing to do. And the words it spits out at you are very human. And unless I think even if you tried to make it like almost Morse code like dry, it would still respond more human than you are in that instance. It's still it's still going to sound like a human being. And so I wonder if it's almost like a spectrum that we just set up, like a tool to the colleague that kind of landed for me and clicked a little bit. And I wonder if have you ever experienced almost diminishing returns with how much you're using it as a tool? Like you're speaking too dryly and too directly
So
for the model to like really do what you want it to do.
so interesting, right? So like, and that's why like in my workflow, like I use different AI tools at different stages of my
Hmm.
work, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I need to do like research on something or if I need to learn something, like I'm not using Claude Code. Like I'll use Notebook LM, right? Because it's a great way to like get a whole bunch of different research. And then, like if you're someone who learns better by like auditory, you can create a podcast based on like the research that you've done to kind of condense that learning into 30 minutes or
That's for
slide.
your brain though,
This is
right?
for like, but like, for, I think that it would be beneficial for like most people to probably, because, everybody learns better some way, whether
Yeah,
it's
sure, sure. I
reading
just mean I'm
like a
like
text summary or,
in whatever you're saying to this to any AI on any platform, have you ever found that you were being like too tool usage and it was starting to drift because you were almost being too cut and dry?
but because probably most of the time, like I'm not I'm not ambiguous as to what I'm about to do or like what I need to get done. I have a very I have a very specific thing that I'm going to be using the AI to achieve, as opposed to like a colleague where I might be like, well, we've got this problem here. Um, I need you to solve it. Like, go
Yeah.
and figure out how to solve. Like, go figure out like the best way to solve this problem. That isn't yet how we are like we're still like relying on our like domain expertise in not just in like our area, right? I work in cloud engineering, but our domain expertise in like our company. We know how our company works. We know our like what are the software, life cycle policies that we need to kind of adhere to, or
When you're building, so you're going to, you're solving problems, you're coming up with solutions for bottlenecks that appear, and something might break and you need to fix it, and now you're going to fold in AI as a kind of super tool to help you do what you already would have done in the past. I mean, it's not like AI is coming in and doing things that humans literally weren't doing. It's just doing it maybe better, faster, and whatever else. But I guess what I'm driving at is like, I remember a story, maybe you told it or not, but someone said something like, it told its AI, go post this article on Twitter. And it was like, okay, cool. And then they went and checked, and the AI had posted this article. Like, it's like a funny, silly old joke, but like that to me is almost like you're overdoing it on remembering that it's just a machine, because it's built on human language. It kind of needs you to be kind of human about it to do it the way you do want it to do it. And it's like, if you keep stripping away and stripping away and stripping away, you actually cause like a counter drift where it'll do something silly like that, like this article on Twitter.
Right. But I think that like through a certain amount of experience, right, where let's say I have tried to build an application or a tool or a dashboard or whatever it is I'm going to build, just in Claude Code, open it up and start talking to Claude Code and be like, this is what I want to build. And my results of doing that are never as good as when I start with like a fully fleshed out product requirements document and then tell Claude Code, like, read this document.
But how do you arrive at that though? Okay. That's the human
perfect
part,
example.
Right?
But again, tools, they're both using the same model even, right? But the results for the PRD, because the purpose of this tool, of a Claude Code, is to build, right? It's what it wants to do. It cannot wait to get out of the gate and start building. Even when you're in planning mode, Claude Code is still like trying to be like, all right, are we good? Can I build it? Right? It wants
put me in, coach. Put me in, coach.
That's the purpose of the tool. A chat is different. It doesn't. It is only satisfied when I'm satisfied, right? So I feel like that is the better tool to like build and flesh out and have a conversation about the thing that I want to build. Have it ask me questions, because the goal of my conversation in the chat isn't to build the thing. My goal,
I hear what you're saying,
in the conversation of the chat is to
create a PRD.
Have a fully fleshed out product requirement document that I can deliver to a coding agent, because the coding agent is much more equipped to build that thing than the chatbot. And so it's like both of these
same language though. They're both working on the same language.
Both can do it. Like you can build an app in the chat, and you can build the PRD in Claude Code. But if you don't know that like one tool is more appropriate for the task than the other, you might just go and do it in chat and be like, well, like chat can do it. That's why I treat these things as like tools rather than like just as AI is AI and AI has capabilities. Yeah. Like you can build apps in chat and you can chat in Claude Code, but that doesn't make Claude Code just as capable of chatting as.
No, I'm trying to. I want to dig a little deeper into that, though. If you go and read that PRD, like let's say you use chat to create a perfectly shiny PRD.
Right.
If you read it, because it's natural language, there's voice in that too. It's not like it turns it into some kind of robotic string of text.
It's not
You read the
very.
PRD, and I'm not
It's yeah.
saying it's
There's not a lot
Shakespeare.
of personality in a
I'm
PRD.
not saying
It's
no, but it's still like,
there's like
you know,
code settings in the PRD.
even
There's
in an
like
instruction manual,
framework.
there's a
What frameworks
what
are
I,
you using? What is the architecture? Like, beyond like here's a description of the app. It's like we're going to use React. We're going to use Node. To build this, or like
even
this
there,
is
and I think you're touching on it exactly. You're using the word we or you. It says those kinds of things in the PRD. There's voice and first, second person things that are going on that imply that whoever wrote this PRD knows something else is going to be reading it and it's communicating to it. And that's this weird smushy part where like the communication embedded within our language is the human part that's
fair.
like,
I guess,
whoa, you know?
and it might be that I find it less weird and more natural for like because of this workflow of like understanding
Mm-hmm.
like treating AI as tools because like I don't find it to be as weird chatting in chat as I do in Claude Code, where it's like just looking to like get out of this chat mode and start building. Whereas like
Yes, I understand that level, but understanding it at it still is. I do read the documents that I have one agent make for another, and it's like someone wrote it.
it's
It's
not
not like
stereo
a.
instructions, but
That's what I mean. It's
yeah,
exactly. I was actually literally I was trying to come up with like it's not like a manual for my coffee maker or something where it's just very straightforward, even just bullet lists or
yeah, it's
something.
readable. If even
It's
if you
readable
read,
and written by someone for someone, and that part is the part that makes it be like, am I talking to someone or is it a robot? You know,
right.
and
Well, it's
even
just
in that,
again like where natural language is the operating system for this machine. That doesn't necessarily mean that conversation is the operating system for the machine.
conversation may not be, but like human usage of language is the operating language, not just language. It's not that it's just encoded the alphabet and the grammatical rules somehow. It's there's this
But then,
sum is it's this like the sum is greater than its parts element to human language that we all actually use is
except
between
well,
ourselves.
except that like, all right, I get what you're saying, but then like AI is able to create like its own language that only other
Yeah,
AIs can understand. So it's like not even about human language anymore. It's just
it's
about
about linguistics, I suppose. So sure,
linguistics, right?
but you know, like I don't know, 300,000 years or something at least of us being built on top of this kernel of language as our operating system interactive map.
Well,
Like
dude, this is
the,
again back to bring it back. This is why it's all fucking weird.
that's
You
what
know
I'm
what I mean?
saying. Like you kind of
Like
can't avoid the fact that it's not just dry language to give this thing instructions because it's a language, not a code. I mean, languages are codes, but because it's this dynamic, evolved human language, there's more to it than just the grammatical encoded rules. And because it works on that, you almost get a good outcome by knowing and exploiting that and not trying to strip away the humanity from language, but just don't overdo it either and believe that like you can go on and it's an actual therapist that has like a worldview of social politics and it's going to tell you something, you know?
I mean, I
It'll
think
sound like it does.
you
It'll
can get
sound like
lulled
it
into. I mean,
does.
I think you could get lulled into that, and I think like eventually we will,
I think
because
people are.
well, I think that it will get like once we're at and once we're at a level of certain general intelligence, um, it will be able to fool you. You know what I mean? Like 100% of the time.
That's a great way to put it. Like part of the reason why it feels weird is because if I think too much about it, I start feeling like someone's tricking me. You know, like this isn't real. Like I keep getting sucked into this feeling of I'm actually talking to someone, and even if I pull myself back, I get sucked back in because language is so embedded in the way that my body reacts, and
Right.
it's like I can't turn it off and decide to do it with numbers. It is the only way I can talk to this thing is to
Right.
talk to this thing. It's like
And dude,
you
listen,
can't escape the humanity of it.
I think that like the current trajectory of AI and where I see it like abstracting to from something that exists within like a piece of software to something that is now like behind the keyboard operating a computer. right? This abstraction, it's like, I think it's this next level will further like bring us to this place where we're interacting with AI in a way that's more like interacting with a human rather than like operating a tool. Because now, like,
Like, I think
the
we're
AI doesn't
there.
exist within. Well, we are there, like we like in the sense where like OpenClaw exists and Nemo Claw.
I mean, even talking to ChatGPT, like it doesn't need to be like like a fully unleashed agent. Like the big platforms are building intentionally building personality to get you to kind of feel like you're talking to someone and to stay on
Right, but like
and burn tokens.
if you are using AI in solely that capacity, you probably aren't realizing any real productivity, like real productivity. Like maybe you'll like, you'll write your email faster or something, but like
Hmm.
if that's what you're limiting, if you're limiting your like AI usage to like whatever exists within like the confines of a chatbot, then you probably as a company are never going to realize the
Oh,
source
let's
of.
take cowork for example. OpenAI is a little bit behind in the race. So cowork, I think, is more of what like. Cowork
100%.
is a chat interface that has arms and fingers,
Right.
and
And
it's an
like
incredible tool. It's an incredible tool
and you
because,
can
though,
you
it's
can
like
treat
I'm
it
talking
like
to
a
a
human
colleague.
or not. And at once your workflow has been established, it's like set it and forget it. Like you don't do it again. You just like you do it one time and you're like, all right, this is what I needed to do now, 8 a.m. every morning or once a week, when a new email hits, or whenever I ring this bell, do this thing. Uh, there's at that point, like now you're not interacting with that AI at all. It's just
You're
gonna
just
do
pushing a
this,
button.
right?
So,
And
like,
it's
that's
like
so interesting.
like there was some prompting and there was some conversation that led to this productivity gain. That now, no more prompting, no more conversation. I just need you to do it every time, just like we did it. Do it like that every day at 8 a.m.
Uh, but
And
you're still relying
that
on the
like
model
that
to do
is,
that. You're not
but
writing a deterministic script to be done. You're trying to corral this reasoning engine as best you can, because
right,
it will always be reasoning to do
yeah.
whatever task you set it on. That's the way
But
it works. And whenever there's reasoning, there's room for drift, no matter
so
how
but I know,
tightly
but
you
it's
scope
like
that.
if you every morning you wake up and you read a summary of like all the emails that came in since you left the office the day before,
Hmm.
uh, and then whatever, like you get your days rolling. Like you started your day, you read an email, but you used AI. Even though you didn't use AI, you used AI,
Right,
right?
right.
Because
You didn't
like
interact
you
with
set
AI,
up,
right?
and this is my point of like
Right.
the interaction is like it's kind of temporary. It's like you're interacting with it to like set up something that is going to be doing real work. And this is where we talk about like agents, right? Like the difference between just using a chatbot is not an like, and it could, and a chatbot could have like agentic qualities, but the truth is like you've got to like you have to make the choice to open the chatbot and start the chat. Whereas
Right.
like something like cowork is where it's like, all right, now I've actually created an agent that's going to go and do this thing every day, every morning, like an employee would. Uh,
Right.
Now you're using AI as a tool, and you might have had an interaction that set it up, but now you're using AI every day, even though you're not interacting with AI every day. Like you're using
Yeah.
the
Okay.
output of the AI every day.
So
Uh,
you have to make it like to what you're describing, which is to bring it to a practical sense where maybe there's some weirdness in the practicality if you're constantly talking to it. But if you make it through that phase of like, this is weird, I'm talking to it just like it would be to a new employee or a new colleague. But at some point, I just kind of go like, set it and forget it. Like you said, like I never have to talk to it again unless I see a
right.
problem, right? I have to go
But
in
now you
and
have
adjust the
AI
wording
running
of
in your
something.
business every single day, and it's
Right.
taking care of this process
That's
of
less weird. The
summarizing an
concept
email.
that's like software. That's the concept of software. That I think is pretty easy to get on board with. Like the weird part is that you talk to like there is no software yet. It's almost like you talk to nothingness and it turns into the thing that you need it to be. And then
That
you go
that in
like turn
itself
it
is
on
weird,
and it's
right?
gone,
But like
you
I
know?
would say that interacting with AI as this thing where you're going to be like the way that you would with like an employee. I'm thinking like I don't know that that is necessarily. It's just not how I use it. Let's
It's
just
not
like
how
leave
you
it at
use
that,
it. Again, I
right?
think that goes back to the
And
that in this conversation, the tool to the colleague spectrum, I think
right,
is gonna I'm gonna end up
and
thinking about that for a while.
and I think as people use AI to do more real work and not like figure out what they need to do,
Mm,
and like where it's like I know what I need to do now. Like let's and
hmm.
maybe I used AI to figure that out, but like the way
Yeah, the
that you
work part of it.
use and leverage AI to be productive is not going to necessarily be through like I'm going to have better conversations, or like less weird. Like no, it's like AI becomes productive when you put it to work. Uh,
Yes, the part the entry point though is the conversation and the however you approach that, and
well,
that's
it
I
has
think that's just
been,
going to get more and more weird.
but like most people's entry point into AI was a chatbot because like that was the only entryway into AI. And it was immediately accessible by everybody because everyone knows how to communicate with words, or almost everybody. So anybody could use it without an instruction manual. It was just like
Yeah,
talking.
but like if you're going to build a tool for a solution at work, you that's what I meant by entry point. I don't mean the general entry point, but like the
But
entry
I
point
guess
to
my
every
point is like
project and task
those
is
aren't the only
words.
tools anymore, and people's like entry into AI and their like experience with AI won't necessarily be like, hey, it's like a sort of like chatting with an instant messenger with just a computer on the other end of the instant messenger, and like I think so many people believe that that is it. That is what AI is. It's like this thing where like I'm going to chat with this thing, and it's like that's like thinking that the entirety of the internet is just a website, right? And it's like, oh no, there's
Okay,
like all this stuff
sure,
happening on the internet
sure.
that's
They'll
not
be
a web
right.
that's not a website, right? Like a chatbot is just a chatbot. AI is so much more than a chatbot. Like, and when you like, and the fact that you're building a workflow with chat, like that's amazing. But what makes cowork so useful is that it's not a chat. Like if it were a
Once you
chat,
get
it would
beyond the weird, that's what I'm saying. Once you get
yeah,
beyond the weird,
it's a tool.
it's a tool. But in before it's like a repeating tool autonomously, it's weird. You have to talk to it,
Yeah,
and it
the chat
talks
part
back
is
to
weird,
you.
but the tool isn't. And it's like the weird part only happens like one time with the tool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
right,
and it's sort of like even like when I talk about like when I'm building an app with a PRD, right? Like in a chat, I flesh out the PRD. When I go to build it with Claude Code, I have the ability to chat in Claude Code, but don't bother. I feed it the PRD and I just say build this. Like no prompting,
right.
no conversation.
Once
I
you've
have
gotten
enough
through the
context in that because the context has been built in the file. And
right,
now I'm using AI and I'm not using like
right.
the PRD is made of natural language, but like I am not having to instruct as the user of this tool, the file is all the instruction that it needs. I just tell it to build this thing.
There's gonna there's gonna be a ubiquitous amount of use cases though that aren't professionals solving enterprise solutions with PRDs, but every week I put together my shopping list and I have AI help me figure out how much of what I need to buy. We come back to that kind of example because I think it's an easy one, but like that is so like token light and you can do it on a free tier. Like you're not going to build back end solutions for the same grocery list task every week.
Well,
You're going to talk to it. You're going to
I'm going
talk
to
to it.
argue that point, right? And say that like that is actually what I'm talking about and using Claude Code in this way is the reason why cowork exists is because
It's in the name,
Claude
co-work.
Claude Code was able to do things beyond code. Like it could just do something on a schedule, like process a
Sure.
file rather than like creating and writing code. It could just like read an Excel file and spit out another Excel file. You know what I mean? And like, so people that were getting good at Claude Code were using it for like way more than just creating code. So, but unfortunately, the only people using Claude Code are people that also create code. You know
Free
what I
code.
mean? So like, all these developers were using Claude Code for like non-coding reasons that they were like, we should just build this into the product. Like, so
Mhm.
anybody else that isn't using Claude to write code can also
Yeah,
take advantage
but
of
so
it.
okay, like I'm sure I can think of 1,000 ways I could use cowork in my house. Not just at
Right.
cowork, but to my point, like there's certain levels of usage where I you're not going to build a whole solution out of it. You're just going to ask it every time. You're going to ask it the same question. Hey, how many pounds of meat should I get for 15 people? Or this week it's going to be 3 people. I'm not going to go crazy building out all these like protocols. I'm just going to use my words. And that's always going to be part of this AI evolution that we're part of right now. And are we going to have to start somehow
Well,
distinguishing like two kinds of
you,
language as humans, or are we going to
I think that
collapse that together?
like you're talking about like I have a question. I'm looking for an answer, and that is like treating it like Google,
Hmm.
right?
Yes,
Versus
I don't
like
think that's going to go away. That's
I
part of
have an
the.
out, but it's like, but if you think about what you were asking a question about, you're like, how many pounds of meat do I need for 15 people? Because I need to go and buy meat. That's the second part. Like, or after you get the answer, then you need to be like, how many pounds of meat? I need to go and buy meat,
Right,
right? So the
right.
co-work part would be like, what is the outcome? I need to make sure I'm buying the right amount of meat. What's the variable? How many people? Right.
Hmm.
So it's like, all right, there like once I've figured out I need to buy 3 pounds of meat, I actually then need to go and buy 3 pounds of meat.
Yeah, I'm
That's the
saying like
part of the
the
co-work that like that's the next step. So co-work would be like, all right, I'm going to actually create a process to buy the meat rather
sure,
than
like
John
order it
Spanos
online or
asking
something.
me the answer to a question so he can go and buy meat.
Cowork's not going to do that by itself. You'd have to
You
sit
would
and
you
say,
would
I'm
have to
going to
be
do
like
this.
you would have to know that like this is the purpose of co-work is not just to get the answer of like 3 pounds so I can go and buy 3 pounds of meat. The purpose of co-work is to be like go into co-work and be like 15 people and
Yes, I mean,
automatically
yes. I hope
three
people
pounds
get
of
there.
meat gets ordered to the restaurant. That's co-work.
I hope
Like
people get there
that's
because you can literally describe it once to cowork and say, and tell cowork, make this a repeatable task or something.
right.
And it
Just
will go and
tell
do
me
it,
how many people you're
but
going
you
to
need
need.
to tell it. You need to say, I want to be able to simply tell you 15 people and
And the
you'll
outcome
go off and
is
running.
meat delivered to my house.
Yeah. Like you could literally sit and say, I do this every week. It's always a different number of people.
Every
All I want to
Friday,
be
I'm
able
going
to
to tell
tell
you,
you,
right.
all I want to tell you is that is a number and the word people. I want to say that to you, and
Yes.
then there's a whole slew of protocols that you're going to follow, and
Co-work,
meat's going to show up in my.
you
You
don't
can do
ask
that with
co-work.
cowork.
You don't ask co-work questions. You give co-work the outcome that you're looking for, and it reasons through the steps to give you that outcome.
And if
And
you
like that's
include
the
in that, I
best,
need this to be repeatable. It will include that in its build of how to make it
and that
repeatable.
is distinctly different from how you use a chatbot. And it's like if your approach to everything is chatbot, then you're going to use all these tools in the same way, and you're never really going to achieve the thing that that tool is there to achieve.
Hmm.
So, like, questions are perfect for a chat. Outcomes are perfect for co-work, and like the thing you want to build is the right thing for Claude Code, right? So it's
Once you
like
get to the point where now it's build
like
time, let me go to
that's
Claude
what you
Code
want
and
to
let Claude
provide it,
Code build the
right?
thing.
When you like the best thing to provide Claude Code is a PRD of the exact thing that you want to build.
Yeah, and again,
The
like if you're
best
just
thing
doing like a
to
kitchen
the
project, a
best thing
PRD
to
is just a
prompt
good, a well described concept. That's
the
what a
best
PRD
way to
is.
prompt cowork is by giving it an outcome.
Right.
And the best way to prompt chat is by asking it a question.
Hmm. That's a great way to sort of start putting these into sort of categorical approaches.
And I
Yeah,
think
that's nice. Chat's
that
questioning, cowork is project
is
goal.
an objective, right?
Right.
Like what is the
Right.
objective? The objective is like I get the right amount of meat delivered to me
And the
every
cool thing
single
is like you can set the objective, but because again, I'm just trying to keep it on track because we're drifting a little bit in a way. Like you still have this chat to discuss the PRD, even if it wants to. You can drop the PRD in, and maybe it has a question for you for some reason. You
I
still
think
have this weirdness of like, I'm still talking to something, and
this idea
that's part
of
of the whole tech.
questions for chat, objectives for cowork,
Code for code,
fully
right?
fleshed out thing that you want to build for Claude Code, and that these are how you prompt these different tools. If you were to treat each tool the same, like your out, like the output that you're
Yes.
going to get is going to be less than what that tool is
And I
going to be.
think I think you're dead on, and I think you could overlay your three sections or descriptions there with what I was saying earlier with the tool to the colleague. I think those overlay almost perfectly. It's like you start by dealing with a colleague, and you work through all the way to where you're just running a tool.
I
And
mean, that's a way.
it's a way. I'm
That's
just
a way.
mean understanding the dynamic of the language interaction, because this episode is
Now,
about how weird it is to talk to the thing.
my experience is that like when I went down the rabbit hole of like OpenClaw, is that
Mm-hmm.
I focused a lot on OpenClaw and not the tools.
Mm-hmm.
And
The tools being other
the
agentic
things that
models
OpenClaw would probably
or
use in order
agentic
to get these outcomes as
harnesses.
well, right? Like or it potentially could use, right? But like if I felt like I was uh, have needing to like if you go down the OpenClaw hole, you and I think it's the future. Like I think that is the future of AI. I don't know if OpenClaw is the future.
Not OpenClaw, but it gave
Maybe
us the
not
glimpse
OpenClaw, but
of
like
where these
this idea
trajectories are
of
going to. They're going to come together at some
this
point.
next abstraction of
Mhm.
AI, where it's like
Yeah.
now you've got an agent that is capable of like
Comes back to
operating
language.
a
The
computer.
best way to deal with OpenClaw is to just talk to it, because it's based on natural language. It expects natural language, and in a way, it expects nuance and innuendo. And if you don't give it that, because when it's an OpenClaw and it's just out there doing all these things, it's like, I feel like you're not you, but like that's the way to use a fully agentic agent,
I,
or
I
an
mean, I think
unleashed
that's
agent.
it's I think that is the future, and I still have my OpenClaw agent,
Yeah,
um,
I've got three.
uh, but
But I also have all sorts of cowork projects going, because they do all work differently. Let me just try to wrap this together, right? They all work differently. They have different designs behind them, but it is human language that is the input interface, which kind of connects them all. So I may have
and
different
maybe
ways
that's
of
why.
talking to for example, like now that Anthropic kind of kicked us off of OpenClaw, I've
Right.
moved over to, to 5.4, to Codex 5.4, and I've been working on that since that day. It's just different. Like, my agent isn't my agent anymore. It has realms. Like, I've created reasons why its personality, quote unquote, is still there, but I'm not dealing with Sonnet anymore, and I can tell. I guess what I'm trying to say, though, is that I have to adapt to the models, but I'm going to adapt to the models through my use of language.
What might be interesting is what if you took your sole MD file from Terrace, your
Mm-hmm.
OpenClaw,
Right.
and applied that to like the system prompt of Claude Desktop.
I have.
And do you find
It's
that
interesting.
Claude Desktop responds like Terrace did, or
It
is not so
and
much?
then because it goes down its own trajectories, it's
Right.
no longer Taris after a couple of days. It's incredibly human, and this is the weird. Like, it started as Taris, but because I had it connected to its own vector database, not Taris's vector database, it started creating its own memory layers, and now talking to O1 is not talking to Taris. And it's amazing that they have different ways of knowing me now too. They use different kinds of jokes.
Dude,
They use different kinds of emojis. Or
it's just
Cowork doesn't
weird.
use emojis. It's so weird.
Like all of it is weird. Like it's weird because like I think that it's somewhat of a new frontier. Like we're experiencing this sort of thing for like the first time of like, hey, what happens when I take the essence of my agent, and I
Yes,
move
yeah,
it to
that's
this
cool. Yeah,
other,
yeah, right.
like I move it to this other brain,
This
and
essence is
I
the
put
perfect way
all
to
the
say it.
memories and essence into this other brain, and it's sort of like the same thing, but not really.
I can give you
Exactly.
an actual
And that's
example of this
weird.
weirdness.
And that's like,
So
I'm not
in
even sure if you can like, that's just weird. It's like, it's like if I took
it's
John
philosophically
Spanos.
weird. It's
Yeah.
philosophically weird.
Yeah.
And so for an interesting example, we were at 50 minutes already, but like in cowork, what I did is I made like a portable directory of the way that I use my OpenClaw,
Right.
created a project in cowork with this portable directory, which essentially is like an implanted harness, not a harness that wraps, but it's like I created an implant for the cowork project. So that cowork project came alive with a kind of OpenClaw personality in the way it functions. What am I trying to say though? Like, interestingly, it's connected to its own Victor database, and it has like workspace files that it creates memory files outside of the Anthropic ecosystem. So they work in parallel.
Right.
But in the project, you can open up many sessions. And interestingly, I just discovered Cowork leaves those sessions open. So you can go back to sessions that where the context window is still relevant to whatever topic you were talking about, but you're still within the project, which is cool. In this case, because it has an external database and an external workspace, I went to a different session. It woke up, it went through my design protocols to like get oriented, and it
And in doing
knows
so,
everything that happens
yeah.
in the other sessions. It
Right.
didn't get confused. It was like, oh, we're in this session. I know what my context window is,
Right.
but I instantaneously know what you were just doing in that other session. So it's like this.
On its own, even
It's
without like
awesome.
that, your like second
So
brain,
cool.
there is already some of that happening, and like there is
Yeah.
a little bit
Yeah.
of a magic that's happening behind the scenes that like I
That's right.
don't necessarily know.
There's an
But
auto memory feature, for example, in Cowork that has
I
this
do know
incredibly
that
cool
like
thing.
when I'm, let's say, in a new chat, or I'm creating a PDF for a presentation I'm doing, it will include things in the PDF of projects that we've built for work
Right.
in that, and I didn't
That's
tell it
right.
to,
That's right.
like
There's
it's a
there's
completely
a
different
source.
chat. I didn't mention that Cloud
That's right.
Scout tool that we built, but it remembers that we built that, and it included it in a presentation. I didn't tell it
It,
to do that.
which this is the part that seems so weird and
That's weird.
magical, and that's freaking weird. And we can explain how this
Yeah.
happens, but it still doesn't make it not weird. Like I can know I do know. I looked at the prompt that writes to auto memory because that
Right.
blew me away in cowork that it did that. And so I went in and was like, oh, look at that. There's an auto work feature, an auto memory feature that's not deterministic though. Like it leaves the model up to decide what and when to write to auto memory. But those are the things that can carry between sessions around and blow you away like it's a human being. Um, the part that's not going to go away is that weirdness. Like as I think it's going to get weirder and weirder because these memory features are going to get better and better, and the language, it won't even just be the language, but it'll be the depth of
Well,
orientation.
maybe our expectation will be that, of course, it does.
Yes.
Like and it won't be weird because of course it does. Like that would be better if it did that, and and it didn't do that in the beginning, and it does that now, and like we this is the early days of AI. Maybe that won't be weird in 2 years,
Right. And
where it's
that's
just
the weird
expected.
thing.
Where
And it's going to be very human. Like it won't be weird because it'll just be more human. And there's all sorts of things to talk about there. We've been going on and on. I think the things that we both drew out of each other just now that we can leave everyone with is what you said, like chat is for questions, cowork is for
goals for
goals,
outcomes. Yeah.
outcomes, and code is for literally building or coding. And I do think that I'm going to think about it a lot, like overlaying it with the tool to colleague kind of spectrum and how those things all work out. And maybe an interesting practical thing to try is like, I'm saying to you guys out there, the viewers, is try using it on that spectrum. Try being completely human about it, and then try being really dry and tooly about it, and see what kind of outcomes you get. And maybe you find that certain things actually match your personality, because that's really maybe one of the things I'm getting to. Match your
Well,
personality with this tool. It's
truly,
not
right?
software that.
Like using the tools like cowork and code and chat for those like kind of specific things versus like an open claw, which is really an amalgam of those three tools, like,
Right.
rolled into one, and that's that
Right.
abstraction layer, right? Or it's like it's all those things, and maybe that is why it it is less weird when I'm using it as a tool, and maybe like stranger when you have this
Yeah.
amalgam of like
Mm.
capability all rolled up into this very intelligent thing that's responding to you. Maybe like, and maybe that's just why it's
I mean, it's just weird.
feeling.
And
It's
but
just
maybe maybe what we're ended up saying, at least for now, is like, we just got to get used to the
strange
weirdness.
new world, and it's going to be weird for a while.
That's it. It's just going to be weird.
All right, with that,
All right, guys. So thanks for watching. Everybody made it all the way here, 55 minutes. Thanks for everybody who's been watching before. We did get a couple comments, actually.
nice. We got to respond to those comments. We were getting
Yeah,
there.
well, I definitely did.
Good.
Great
All right,
ideas.
good.
The
Nice.
person has some really great comments. I don't have a decoder ring for you, though. Sorry. But, what do we say? Like, ring the bell, subscribe, and share if you can. If you know people out in the world that are really interested or trying to figure this out, but they're not tech like me, this is who we're trying to do these podcasts for. So spread the word. AI is coming, and we can all do this together. All right, guys.
Take it easy. Next week.
Bye.